And hey, we're back with part two of the best comic writers of 2011. Those of you who are questioning why I've done it, who didn't watch the 10 best artists of 10 best comic artists of 2011, the reason I'm doing this is because MTV Geek had their 10 best. I agreed with some, really disagreed with others, particularly. I'm not even gonna say because I don't want to offend anyone who might look at this. So we just wrapped up with 10 through 5, and there was actually there were 7 of them because there was a tie for 10th place. Okay, so number 4 is Nick Spencer. With a really varied career. I have not read Thunder Agents yet. I plan to. I think a trade came out today, didn't it? I think like the first trade came out, and I think the new issue came out today as well. So I've got to find that. I've got to pick it up and start reading it. And why didn't anybody tell me he was doing Iron Man 2.0? Because I have to go back and read that now. Because he's just doing all this stuff. My favorite moment of his of 2011, oddly enough, did not lie in Morning Glories or Ultimate X-Men. It actually laid within a single issue of Secret Avengers, issue 12.1, which was, if you remember, it was the first tie-in to Fear Itself, and it was the I call it the beast-centric issue, where he's dealing with the member of Congress who is a mutant, and there's the attack on the Capitol, and this champion of civil rights, whether it's for whether it's for people of every race, color, creed, or genome in this particular case, because he's an advocate of mutant rights as well. He's there alone in the Capitol building, and he has the power to essentially make the monuments, such as the Lincoln Memorial, come to life to fight the blitzkrieging, big Nazi robot machines that Sin is commanding. And that issue was so powerful and so immensely filled with bravado and heart and just ridiculously good writing, that I have, it's, to me, it's my single favorite moment of Nick Spencer's of this year, despite how much I love and worship Morning Glories. Okay, so that's Nick. So number 3 is Dan Slott. I didn't think, honestly, after a certain point, I didn't think I'd ever read another issue of Amazing Spider-Man ever again. Once J. Michael Straczynski was off that title, I figured, well, it can only get better, because that was just abysmal. And not only did it get better, now I haven't gone all the way back to Brand New Day and read it all from there. I basically picked it up when kind of in the midst of Big Time, whether it was near the beginning or closer to the end. I think it was probably closer to the end. But I saw a vibrant Spidey that had great characters, or great characterization, great dialogue, really powerful storytelling. But again, his kind of single shining moment amidst all the great stuff that he did this year with Big Time and with Spider Island, the best event comic in years, was the, I think, 2 to 3 issue arc, No One Dies, of Amazing Spider-Man. The work that was shown in that was so powerful so moving and so real that it really touched me. And that's, I can't remember the issue number, but it's the first issue of the No One Dies arc. Is my favorite of the it's one of my favorite single issues of the year. It really is. It's fantastic. And these next writers will have, most of these writers that I've talked about so far have those moments, have those, those issues of the year. So, and that was Dan Slott's, and just in general, fantastic writer. I can't imagine a better person to write Spider-Man. Been, in my opinion, is the best writer to have ever been on The Amazing Spider-Man. So, again, just magical, wonderful work. It's made me a fan of Spidey again, really and truly. I mean, in the 616 universe, I should say, because I did enjoy Ultimate Spider-Man, and do, of course, still enjoy Ultimate Comics Spider-Man. Number 2. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Knowing me, well, there's a number 2 guy and a number 1 guy. And since he hasn't mentioned either one of these guys yet, who is it going to be? Who's going to be the king? Well, number 2 used to be the king. He was the king and may very well be the king again. But this year, number 2 is Ed Brubaker. For the longest time, I would always put him at the very top of my list of the best writer of the year. He always brought in the best stories with the coolest characters, the best supporting casts of any comic book, and also the best of the single kind of independent Marvel imprint, the Marvel Icon imprint. And this year, despite his work on Captain America and Bucky, Captain America again, it is the work of Criminal, The Last of the Innocent that shined the darkest, if, to put a finer point on it. It's an astounding piece of noir comic book. There's no other way to put it. It's the single strongest noir comic book that I've ever read. Single strongest crime comic book I've ever read. That run of Criminal, the arc of Last of the Innocent, is just tremendous. And it's a very, it's a very half and half type of thing, because it is, it is also largely due to Sean Phillips' great art, who I talked about in my artist segment, but it's Brubaker's words, his characters, his ideas that bring it into very specific relief. It's an amazing thing to look at. It's an amazing thing to watch. It's an amazing thing to read. And Ed Brubaker is still a god. But he's just not the king this year. And that title, the best writer of comics in 2011, I'm pretty sure you know it's coming, is Mr. Scott Snyder. Where do I begin? I want to say that it's because of his run on Detective Comics. But it's just not that simple. I've never seen a writer who... Almost literally, I've never seen a writer that is more in tune with who Batman is. I haven't seen a writer this in tune with who Batman is since I'm actually going to say, and this is going to shock some people, since Denny O'Neil. Frank Miller got a pretty big part of it, but he left out the detective part of it. And that's what Scott understands. He understands that Batman is the world's greatest detective. And that was not a big part of the Black Mirror story arc that it is known as now. But it was definitely there. It's now present in his current work on Batman, the actual title, Batman. And it's glorious. But he's definitely in tune with who Batman needs to be. And the story arc of James Gordon Jr. it was phenomenal. I was literally on the edge of my seat whenever I was reading those particular issues. Even the ones that didn't have to do specifically with him, and that had to do with the daughter of Boss Zuko, and just amazing stuff. But again, it's just not that simple. It's not just Batman. It's Severed, and his work on Severed so far, which is the creepiest, most frightening comic book I have read maybe ever. And then even that's not enough, because you also have Swamp Thing. Again, a return to form of horror in Swamp Thing, but putting it into the DC universe and having him exist there, and not actually having the character of Swamp Thing so much take center stage as Alec Holland, who is learning to live once again, but with this connection to the green that is extraordinarily powerful, and something that is a big part of who he is. And there's not been an issue of anything that he's done that hasn't been great. And that's where you get the best writer of the year, is because Scott Snyder defies all of the rules of, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be the superstar writer for a while, and probably coast a little for, and just do this issue, just kind of half-assed, and maybe kind of phone this one in, but I'll do this one awesome and this one awesome, so it'll keep people reading and keep people invested, even if whatever. Because I've seen there are writers that do that. They do the whole superstar thing, and then they kind of phone it in for a while, but still maintain their superstar status. And Scott Snyder, he's not doing that. Every issue of everything that he writes is pretty much a masterpiece. And so, I mean, it's just, and I forgot to mention Gates of Gotham. But that was co-written with Kyle Higgins. And of course, he's co-writing Severed with Scott Tuft. But his work is just, it's in a different, all the other work is like down here. His is like in the stratosphere, and Ed Brubaker is hot on his tail, believe me. And Dan Slott is hot on Brubaker's tail. So I mean, these writers that we've talked about tonight, they are the cream of the crop. They're the top of the heap. They're the best, and the best of the best is Scott Snyder. I can't just gush enough love on that guy, so I'm going to stop. But I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, like, dislike, comment, criticize, complain, whatever. Subscribe. Please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. It's at Donnelly, Donnelly 92274. And it's James Donnelly on Facebook. Drop me a line. Be my friend. Follow me. Whatever. This is the Shadow Gallery. Good night.